alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Hello and welcome to Alive After Reading. I'm your host, Tim Niederreiter, and I'm alone today on Halloween. Yes, the spookiest night of the year, at least for those of us who celebrate such a holiday. And I am kind of uncharacteristically not that lonely. I'm feeling okay, feeling good lately. Been writing a lot, which is awesome. Been reading a bunch too, and I thought I'd review some of these books that I've been reading on my Kindle app, mostly. I just like the Kindle app a lot. I think I've probably mentioned it in recent shows, and the Kindle app is just, it's quality. It's like, okay, I can read on my phone now, and it has a certain amount of just usability, right? Like, I mean, I just flip open, and it saves all, and I can download any of the things that I've bought on there, or set there, any of the books. It's just so easy. I'm sure most e-reader apps are similar. I just find it ultra convenient to read these things on the phone, regardless. So, the first thing I want to review was actually 3 books, and that's the Elric Saga, the prequels, actually, to the Elric Saga, which, full disclosure, I've not read the original 3, which take place later in the story, and they're on my to-do list, let me put it that way, especially because these blend into them at the end. They, spoiler alert, blend into the original book very, very tightly. Like, they're just, it's like, that's why the first book probably, the original book probably starts kind of in media res, just because I did start it, and it begins with Elric pursuing this guy, and we don't know, and this rival, wizard or something, and anyway, it's interesting. And these books are interesting too. I mean, these are kind of the story of this dark sword and sorcery, famous series by Michael Moorcock, of course, and just incredibly, I don't know the word for it, incredibly fast-paced, actually, I think is the main thing that I noticed, and very, well, not indulgent, but very focused on the things that I personally really like about fantasy, so they really worked for me. The first one is called, I believe, well, I mean, the Elric series is hard to find them named properly, but I think the first one is called, well, I know the second was Sailor on the Seas of Fate. What the hell was the first one? Oh, Elric of Melniboné, I think was the first one. Maybe I'm wrong. But anyway, you can find these in collections all over the place, and probably you can find a complete collection of all 6 books somewhere around here too, on the web. I'm not an aficionado of that stuff. I just got the ebooks gifted to me, actually. So somebody sent all 6 ebooks to me, and they really are fun. They're right up my alley, and I've said this probably before on the show. I don't remember everything I say on the show because I'm a forgetful man. But when I read these books, they remind me very much of my childhood, growing up with Warhammer Fantasy and all sorts of these things, and how these dark fantasy worlds really jumped out at me when I was a kid. And, I mean, the Warhammer world is extremely inspired by Elric of Melniboné and the setting around him. And, yeah, good stuff. Good, fun stuff. Very, I mean, they're showing their age a little bit in some areas. There's a little bit of the tropes around sexism, mostly, and how the female characters are generally kind of wilting and weak, compared to what I would expect nowadays. What you'd see in a similar story now would be, you'd have probably at least one of them would be more assertive, and maybe there are more of those in the original trilogy. I don't know. I haven't gotten there yet. I did start reading Gormenghast, and I can't review that one, but I started reading that book by Mervyn Peake because there's an epigraph from it at the beginning, or I think, in the middle of one of the Elric books. I think the third one, the third prequel, so it's funny, because I'd been meaning to pick up Gormenghast for a while, and I finally did, and it's pretty fun, actually. I've only read the very beginning, and it's an interesting setup. Basically, Gormenghast, I believe, if I'm correct, the premise is that this series takes place all in this one great big, decaying castle called Gormenghast. And that is an interesting place to see. It's an interesting concept, and one I want to explore more. So you better believe I'm going to be reading that one. And then, what's the next one on my list? Oh, Alice Zero. That's the other one I finished. And it's kind of a long, 30-some page poem. And I'm not going to mince words here. It is a poem. It is not fiction. It is poetry. By a friend of the show, Joshua Pantalleresco. And it is just, it's a fun Alice in Wonderland kind of take. And very interesting. It's got that dark edge to it. And kind of, and it's lyrical, obviously. It's poetry. So, and yet it's blunt and to the point. And I like that kind of thing, that kind of contrast. It drew me in, and I read it all in one sitting. Obviously, it's quite short by the standards of a book of like, a novel or even a novella. It would be 100 pages long usually, or so. So yeah, nice little read, quick read. I'd encourage people to check that out on Amazon. I believe that's where you can find it. It might be on other sites as well, but it's like 99 cents. Or free, I forget. So yeah, pick that one up if you're looking for some poetry. The last book that I want to talk about though is Seven Figure Fiction: How to Use Universal Fantasy to Sell Your Books to Anyone by T. Taylor. And she does a great job in this book. Full disclosure, I did learn about this book through the Six Figure Authors podcast, so shout out to them. I went and I listened to their interview with Theodora Taylor, T. Taylor, and thought it was... okay, this author sounds like fun. Sounds like a fun person. Sounds like she's got some good insights on how to write, good selling fiction. I mean, I'm a Minnesotan, so I'm going to understate it instead of overstate it. It's a good selling fiction instead of best selling fiction, but it seems like that's the sort of thing she actually is producing. So, what do you want from me? Anyway, so I read this book. It's nonfiction. It's about writing. It's right what it says on the tin. It's about using these kind of broad archetypal kind of desires that people have as the basis for your fiction, so that people will love your book regardless of what genre they love to read normally, and regardless of what your book is in relation to their taste. I thought this was really interesting, and it is all told from basically about it's all framed up around romance stories, but I think the principles are very applicable elsewhere as well. So I'm pretty excited about it. I think I'm looking forward to using some of these traits and tropes and ideas in my own fiction. Though, to be fair, none of this stuff in this book is directly applicable to my stuff, except for maybe a couple of the different examples, because almost all of this is extremely romance heavy, and I write fantasy and science fiction, even with a romance. I mean, if you've read any of my books, there's usually a romantic element, but there's also a lot of action and adventure and other stuff, and weird sci-fi and fantasy elements, of course, that don't really fit with the basic desires of that are described explicitly in this book, but they do fit with the general concept of what T. Taylor describes in this fairly short, around 170-page book. And I mean, again, I read this one in one sitting. I guess I'm really getting used to reading on my phone. And or one day, rather. I did a couple sittings. And it was a lot of fun and very informative. I really enjoyed how she broke down the different examples and samples and stuff. And I mean, I don't know how much else I can say about it. Definitely go check that out. That's on Amazon as well. And at least that's where I got my copy. It may be wide. I'm actually not certain. But yeah, thanks for listening, folks. I mean, this is my just Halloween review show, I guess. So thanks for listening. And as for this podcast, you can find more of us at mentalcellarpublications.com. And you can find my books at timniederreiter.com/books. Or just, go to amazon.com and search Tim Niederreiter. You'll find me there. Thanks for listening, people. Happy Halloween!
That tears it.